We live in a world that seems completely obsessed with constant radical change. But there's a whole political philosophy that actually champions tradition and stability. So today, we're going to unpack conservatism. So let's just start with a really fundamental question. Should we be trying to redesign our society from the ground up to fix all its problems, or should we let it evolve slowly, preserving the wisdom we've inherited over time? That question, that tension right there, is at the absolute heart of conservative thought. To really get a handle on conservatism, we have to start with its central metaphor for what society even is. It's an idea that, really, it frames everything else. So, what are we talking about here? Well, at its core, conservatism is all about preserving things that have been tested by time. Now, the key here isn't a total rejection of all change. It's more of a deep skepticism of abrupt change. The goal is a cautious, gradual evolution, one that doesn't threaten to just unravel the entire social fabric. And this brings us right back to that core metaphor I mentioned, the organic theory of society. So instead of seeing society as some kind of machine that we can just re-engineer, conservatives see it as something alive. This quote just perfectly captures the essence of the theory. It suggests that our core institutions, family, government, our communities, they weren't just invented out of thin air. They've grown naturally over centuries, and they contain this kind of accumulated wisdom that conservatives believe we should respect, not just toss aside. Think of it this way. You wouldn't perform some kind of radical, totally untested surgery on a healthy person, right? Well, conservatives see society in the exact same light. They argue that these drastic political experiments can seriously damage its complex, interconnected parts and threaten its overall health. For them, gradual evolution is really the only healthy way to move forward. Okay, so where did this whole way of thinking come from? It didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was actually forged in the fire of one of the most chaotic events in modern history. And that event was the French Revolution. This attempt to tear down an entire social order and build a brand new one from scratch, all based on abstract ideas, well, it created just immense social chaos. And that turbulence is the direct historical context for the birth of modern conservatism. And the key voice responding to all this chaos was the Irish statesman and philosopher Edmund Burke. He is widely, and I mean widely, considered the father of modern conservative thought, precisely because he came up with such a powerful critique of all that revolutionary fever. Burke's argument connects right back to that organic metaphor we talked about. See, he didn't see society as some contract you could just rewrite whenever you wanted. He saw it as this delicate inheritance, a kind of partnership between the dead, the living, and those who are yet to be born. And he warned that disrupting that chain hastily was a huge mistake. So his condemnation was pretty clear. For Burke, the huge error of the French Revolution was just how radical it was, this belief that you could simply erase history and start all over. He saw this as an act of profound arrogance, completely ignoring the wisdom that's embedded in existing traditions through centuries of trial and error. Okay, so we've got the historical origins. Out of all that, a really clear set of principles started to emerge. Let's take a look at the blueprint of conservative ideology. So what are these core principles? Well, first up, there's tradition and continuity, the idea that they carry the wisdom of the past. Second, a commitment to incremental, gradual change over revolution. Third, a deep respect for established institutions, things like family, religion, as these pillars of social cohesion. And finally, there's a real emphasis on individual responsibility, but always within the context of your duty to the community. Now let's fast forward to the 20th century. The philosopher Michael Oakeshott offered a more modern take on all this. He argued that politics isn't some grand quest to chase a perfect utopian future. He saw it as something much more modest, a practical activity, simply keeping the ship of state afloat by, as he put it, attending to arrangements and just maintaining the health of our institutions. And this brings up a really key contrast with liberalism. Liberalism often frames freedom as breaking away from tradition. But conservatives, like Oakeshott, they see it completely differently. They argue that tradition doesn't destroy your individuality, it actually creates the conditions for it. In their view, real freedom can only be enjoyed within the stable order that traditions provide. Okay, so that's the philosophy, that's the history, but how does this stuff actually show up in the world today? Let's connect these ideas to modern politics. You can see the legacy of these ideas in so many common political positions today. A focus on protecting national identity, a really strong emphasis on law and order, the defense of institutions like the family, and a clear preference for gradual reform, all of these stem directly from the core principles we've been talking about. Of course, no ideology is without its critics. Common criticisms argue that this intense focus on tradition can sometimes become a resistance to necessary social progress, and that cautious, incremental approach can also be seen as just too slow to respond effectively to new and urgent problems that society is facing. And all of this brings us right back to our central theme. In a world that's changing faster than ever before, what really is the value of tradition? When is it a vital guide, and when is it an obstacle? That's a question that's just as relevant today as it was all the way back in Burke's time.